Yes, hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Govea. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, the word of the day is persevere. And that's really what it feels like. That's sort of appropriate for the opening of the show. Yeah, persevere is the word. It's been a doozy of an election, and we are still waiting for a lot of results. It's a couple days out. We're still like 70% here in Arizona. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. And so the word is persevere. We had a lot of questions about the midterms, and the dust is still settling, and we've got a lot of people splicing and dicing this every way. Donald Trump's a monster. Donald Trump's a hero. Mitch McConnell's a monster. Mitch McConnell's a hero. The list goes on and on. So we've got a lot to attend to. We've got 4 segments. We're going to spend the first 2 on the election, and then sort of transition out a little bit so that we can talk about some other things. But of course, the big news here, I am in Arizona. We've got a lot of questions about who our next governor is going to be. So does a lot of the country. And it's not just our governor, it's our senator. We've got Blake Masters versus Mark Kelly, the space cadet. And we're asking ourselves, who is going to win? We've got several clips today from Kari Lake. She says that America First is alive and well, and we are going to prevail. So we'll talk about her. I want to bounce around and give you an update on what's going on in Arizona. We'll actually take a look at the election tabulation cameras. You can see we've got several different things that we can look at. And if you remember, boy, we started doing this last time in 2020. We started looking at all these cameras and stuff the last go around. And here we are again. It feels like a deja vu. So we'll check in and see what's going on with Arizona. Bill Gates, not the billionaire, the other one who is here, says that Arizona is probably going to be counting this until next week. And maybe not even Monday, like maybe after Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. He doesn't really know. Doesn't want to commit a lot. Maricopa County issued an apology, which we'll talk about. They started the hand count audit where they just sort of sample a small percentage of all the ballots. So we'll take a look at that. We'll check on the latest reports today, to see what Bloomberg has for us and see what the official Arizona recorder has. We'll also check in with the data guru and our friend Harmeet Dylan. So a lot here going on in Arizona. Before we turn our attention over to what's going on in Trump world, Trump came out and apparently he told Fox News, nothing's changing, dummies. Why would anything change? He says, we've got an announcement, next week. It's scheduled for the 15th. Many people are speculating that this is going to be his presidential announcement. And they said, hey, Trump, a lot has happened over these last couple days. What is your plan? And he said, what are you talking about? I already told you what my plan is. I'm announcing something big on the 15th. Stop asking me about it. So apparently nothing's changing. We've got Kari Lake, who is sort of supporting that. And she's like, yeah, lay off him. Take it easy on the guy. He's done a lot of great things for America. He's doing very well for the country. She says great things have happened. And so we'll check in with her. We have Democrats who are concerned that they're going to be the subject of Republican inquisitions. And they're saying, gosh, we really hope that there's not 2 years of ongoing investigations, because that would just be a poor use of time in government. So they're sort of begging Republicans now, let's be diplomatic now. Let's have amnesty. Let's all get along now that we may be under the microscope. We'll have to see what the answer is on that one. Kinzinger, we've got a clip from him. He's patting himself or something himself, where he's very excited about the work they've done on the January 6th committee. He says that might be instrumental in what happened. And then we have a clip from Paul Ryan. And so we're starting to see the bifurcation within the Republican Party really get aggressive. Paul Ryan coming out and saying Donald Trump is not good. So several clips on that front. We'll check back in before we move on to see what's going on in the House of Representatives. Scalise saying that he's not going to be challenging Kevin McCarthy. And so presuming the Republicans win, that's going to be the update there. Joe Biden was bumbling around with a bunch of cell phones, doing something when he was calling and congratulating a bunch of people after they won. So we'll talk about that. And then he had a couple bizarre gaffes, man. I think he thinks we're still in Iraq. He has a very difficult time with words like apocalyptic, which is a little bit tricky. Apocalyptic. Apocalyptic. Apocalyptic, yeah. So he has trouble with that, but we'll check in with him. And then will kind of, meander, a little outside of some election stuff, just to give us all a little bit of a breather here. We've got Biden and the administration coming after Elon Musk, right? And this is something that we've been prognosticating that would happen. Once they lose their pillar, once they lose their town square that they control, they have to go after the people who are now in charge. Biden is saying that, it's probably appropriate to go after Elon, given the fact that he doesn't censor disinformation. Now he's like a little terrorist. So he's talking about it. We're going to check in with Jake Sullivan, who went to Oxford or something, Harvard, brilliant, genius guy. He gives a non-answer on this. The Washington Post is confirming that the feds are poking around. They're like trying to find some mechanism by which they can go after Elon. And then we've got Elon's very first email that he sent over to Twitter employees, which is fun. He's like, hey, brace yourself, boys and girls. Things are going to get a little bit tricky out here. And he says, also, you're coming back into the office, and a lot of other fun stuff that we'll take a look at before we see that the FTC is also angry at Elon. Okay, so the entire regulatory state, the strong arm of the government, the big fat boot that they like to just shove on everybody's neck, whoever steps out of line, is coming down on Elon from the executive branch, the FTC, and we'll see what the DOJ does when they get rolling on this. So a lot of stuff. And we'll see. It's just ridiculous. You can just see it's a pivot. They just go, oh, here is where the laser beam goes, right over to Elon. So we'll start there, or get there in the third segment. Before we have to talk about this Oath Keepers situation, there was an FBI informant apparently who was embedded with the Oath Keepers. And if these Oath Keepers are these big sedition, conspiracy, insurrectionists, it's kind of strange that it got as far as it did if there were FBI informants who were actually embedded with the Oath Keepers. So the New York Times wrote a story about this, and prosecutors, they were pissed. They were shocked. How did the New York Times know about this? Where did they get this information? Where did the leak come from? Only the DOJ is supposed to leak. If a defense attorney leaks or the news gets it from somewhere else, then it's a catastrophe. But the prosecutors, they filed a motion supposed to be under seal, and it wasn't under seal. It, in fact, was accidentally or publicly published. And so you can see the prosecutors are writing in this motion. They're asking the judge to go after and go grill the defense attorneys, basically. Hey, those defense attorneys, go beat them up, judge. It was supposed to be like a non-public filing, and it was public. And so we get to take a look at it. Prosecutors asking the judge to grill the defense attorneys. And so you can see, my friends, we have got a lot to get to today. And if you want to be a part of the program, the place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. You can see that's our community right there. We have an amazing crew over there chatting away. Shout out to Bonnie Speck, who changed her avatar to a smiley face. Uncle Shane, JC the Music Man. We got Cat Zaps in the house. Kelly Salnow, Farmer's Daughter, all making their way over to our community. And we also see some of these super chats come in from time to time. So shout out to our friend Geomancy Games. He says, spending some advertising dollars, Rob. Love the work you do. Encourage your audience to head on over to my locals and or YouTube as I start to lay out some thoughts on what we do going forward. That's from Geomancy Games. And of course, you can find Geomancy Games on YouTube and on locals. And he's got some, let's say, provocative and compelling thoughts for you. And so go check that out. Good to see you, Geo. Hope you're doing well. But that's how those super chats come in. And of course, we've got a lot to get to. We'll break it down segment by segment as soon as my mind map catches up. It accidentally thinks that I have grabbed something when I have not. All right, so we're going to do a refresh on the old. No, here it is. Sometimes we have to do a refresh on the old mind map. There's a lot of activity going on over there. So we're doing a quick refresh before we queue this puppy up and get right into business. And here we go, my friends. Starting with Kari Lake on the program. All right. And I think, are we working all over the place? There it goes. All right. Let's get to it. Kari Lake, we're still waiting for some results here in Maricopa County. We're going to go through the details on the latest from the election tabulators, what the heck is going on with our county recorders. But first, we have to check in with Kari Lake. She says, the midterms are still pending. We are still counting votes. There's still a lot to be happy and thrilled about. She says, America First is alive and well. And we're never going to have an embarrassment like this again, where Arizona counts votes so slowly when she's in charge. But Kari Lake is very careful with the words that she uses as she explains what's happening here. She calls it a slow roll. Here's Kari Lake after the midterm election day, wondering why it's taking so long for the votes to be counted. And she's not specifically alleging anything nefarious going on other than just a slow sort of counting of the votes. There's a delay that's going on. And of course, sometimes a delay might be useful to serve one narrative, one conversation, to blunt a narrative that there was a gigantic red tidal wave coming through the country. You say, oh, there kind of wasn't. You kind of put up dams in the narrative. You kind of slow down a wave in Arizona. You slow down a wave in other places maybe where you can just sort of slow the counting, right? We're still waiting on votes to be counted in Nevada and other places. And people are asking, why is it taking so long? Kari Lake has a theory that it's not anybody's attempt to manipulate or do anything ultimately nefarious, but it just is a procedural mechanism that is just a slow process. I'll let Kari Lake explain here.
It's not going to be treated that way much longer. We will never have another election run like this. I'm sick of it, and the people are sick of it. And we are going to, don't worry, Charlie, and don't worry, America, and don't worry, Arizona. We're going to change things up so we don't have this happening every single election. And we'll work very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm always going to speak the truth, and I will be Arizona's cheerleader. But when we have something that's not working, we have to admit it, and it's not working the way we're doing things. I think, there could be some intentional be some intentional actions here to slow roll this. They always intentionally have the early ballots ready to go. We roll those out on election night. They favor the Democrats, and they want to bring down the excitement for Republicans. This is a Republican year. Republicans and even people who aren't Republicans are tired of the dead-end policies of the Democrat Party. But they wanted to throw, like I said, throw cold water on our movement. They want to take that victory away. They want to make it look like America First is not thriving when in fact it is. Don't believe the narrative that you're hearing. They're going to get 2 or 3 days of this where they're saying, oh, Trump didn't do well. His picks actually did do quite well. They did very well. And America First movement is still alive and well. And I think they didn't want us to have our big moment with our big victory speech. They did this to me in the primary. They slow rolled the results when they finally let us declare victory. And when they finally declared me the winner, I was only up by, I think, 0.5 point. So the media ran with the false narrative that I squeaked out a win, a narrow victory. And then later in the coming days, they finally counted the rest of the ballots only to reveal that I won by 5 points, which is pretty good when you're up against 4 opponents. Yeah. I won by 5 points. But the media never covered that. They kept with that narrative that it was a squeaker. And I think they're going to try to do that again. I believe we win, and I think we win by a good margin. And we're going to go on to reform our elections so we never have this embarrassment again.
A very slow process where we start to see this trickle of votes. I mean, it's just changed ever so slightly every single sort of day and moment we've been on here checking the polls. And for those of you who are just joining us here live, we had a morning stream for members where we were checking in and the numbers really hadn't moved since the night before. And it's just kind of this very slow process. Kari Lake, I think, is recognizing that it is the effect of this is that it blunts the momentum, right? And it sort of allows the other side to tell a different story that maybe is not in reality. So she says, we're still going to win. Don't worry about it, America. Don't worry about it, Arizona. We're still going to push forward because the votes that have been counted aren't the ones that are going to break in her favor. Now, we've got big questions about, why this is taking so long, how this is taking so long. Even CNN is trying to get a hard number on this. They meet with this guy. You remember him. Bill Gates runs some of the election processes in Arizona, and people are asking, what's taking so long, Bill? When are you going to get a final number for us? We need a deadline. When are you thinking?
Again, when do you anticipate the votes will be counted in total, those 400,000 plus votes?
Well, we will be going into next week. There's some onesie twosies, again, pursuant to Arizona law, but I think that we'll see the lion's share here wrap up by early next week.
Early next week, can you give me a day? Are we talking Monday? Or we?
Maybe, as long.
Maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, because we've got some onesies and twosies to attend to before we can figure out what to do here. Now, I live in Arizona, and we don't really talk like that. Onesie twosies. I'm not sure what that means. Joshua G says it's a legal term. Oh, yeah, I didn't learn that one in law school. Onesie twosies. I don't know what they are. What are onesies and twosies? I don't know. We just got a onesie and twosie it until we get the results. Just put a onesie and a twosie in there, doop, doop, boop, 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 until we get answers. I don't know. Let's listen and see if we can parse this out again.
The votes will be counted in total, those 400,000 plus votes.
Well, we will be going into next week. There's some onesie twosies, again, pursuant to Arizona law, but I think that we'll see the lion's share here wrap up by early next week.
Onesie twosies.
Early next week, can you give me a day? Are we talking Monday? Or we?
Maybe, as long.
Oh, no. I can't give you a hard number on it. Just hold your horses there, CNN. Doesn't really matter. We'll get the result that we want when we give it to you. All right. And so you can see there is a lot there. Now, we've got questions about what actually happened in Maricopa County. And so I want to give you an update. There's not a lot of, actual litigation that I'm following right now. Most of that was stalled out, but there is a lot of updates from the county. And so they gave us a little bit of a breakdown on what they say happened on election day, right? Now, this is their official report from Maricopa County, and they dropped this last night at 8 p.m. They said, Arizona and America, here's an update on the printer issue with some vote center ballots yesterday, the day before. They've got some investigation done. They've apparently got answers for us. They say what's important now is all ballots that have been affected will be counted securely and accurately. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the electoral tabulation videos in a minute so you can see what they're talking about. But this is from the press conference. They say, what happened? An issue with the printers impacted an estimated 17,000 ballots, or less than 7% of election day votes. Well, it's a pretty big number there. All right. I mean, what's the margin? Until recently, it was just about, well, we should probably take a look at the margin, actually. Let's take a look and see where we're at, because we probably should do that so we can get our bearings straight, as we like to say here. Have numbers changed? Not really. All right, this is over from Bloomberg. You can see the gubernatorial results in Arizona. We are still at 50.4% for Katie Hobbs and 49.6% for Kari Lake. We're still at, it looks like, about 70% of the estimated vote that is in. So we will check back in. Again, the numbers haven't changed. We're expecting some updates later on in the evening, but let's go back to the update on what happened here from Maricopa. All right. So what happened? 17,000 ballots apparently were involved or impacted or estimated to have been impacted by this problem. Now, if you look at the results, right, that 17,000 votes, that would close the margin because we've only got a margin here of 16,000 votes. All right, so 16,000 is the lead, and the margin that they're talking about is 17,000. So it's like right there. It's like right in the same margin. The numbers are all very close. Here is that number, 16,677 votes. From this number, 17,000, are the ones that might have been impacted. So we're talking about like the same buckets. Yeah, some ballots could not be read by the tabulators because the printers did not produce dark enough timing marks on the ballots. Now, we knew that there was a toner problem. They forgot to change their toner, and that's why there were there were imprint problems when they printed the ballot out. And a quick refresh, right? You check in on a touch screen, confirms you are who you say you are, and then it prints your ballot with some of those marks on there. The ballot is sort of created for you. So the timing marks were the marks that were problematic. Now, this is a very low sort of sound. Let's see if we can hear what they say.
We have approximately 17,000 of those ballots that were in box 3. So we want to set expectations on that. First thing is the team here now is going through the quality assurance on those ballots, making sure that we don't have any double counts, making sure we know exactly what we're looking at here, okay? But to talk about the full number of in-person ballots yesterday, we have about 7% of the total of in-person ballots yesterday that went into box 3. So that 17,000 ballots is about 7%. Clear on.
All right, so a quick breakdown of what happened. Remember, to catch everybody up who hasn't been, following Arizona, there was 2 slots that are in the tabulator machines. You take your ballot, fill it out. You're supposed to put it in the top slot. We call that the top door, the front door. And that is what automatically calculates it. It gives you the green check, thumbs up, boom, you get your sticker, you're out of there, you're good to go. If that doesn't work and it wasn't accepting the ballots that were printed and being shoved in the front there, then you had to drop it into what they call door 3, the back door. It's not the automatic tabulation, but those go into a separate bucket, almost like you just mailed it in. It's almost like you just mailed it right in that third door. And then they're going to take that down to the main tabulation center and they're going to count those. They're going to verify those, say, okay, this is not somebody's second or third ballot, like they didn't go to other places. And he's saying it's all going to be confirmed because it's all going ultimately to the same spot. Really, his distinction is it's just being counted in 2 different locations. If it goes in the top slot, it gets counted right there automatically. If it goes in the back door, it goes downtown to the tabulation center, which is where it is tabulated. Now, 7% is a pretty significant number, and a lot of people are asking themselves, okay, well, who might have been not inclined to go to the polls? Who may have been, to use a term that Stacey Abrams likes to use, suppressed? Who may have been suppressed, right? Or dissuaded from voting because they got up, they went, they say, oh, man, I got to be at work at 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock. I'm an early construction guy, got to be on the job site at 6 a.m. So, all right, so I'm going to swing in there at 6 a.m. when they open and just vote real quick before I get to the job site, and then I'll get it done, whatever, okay, whatever it is. And they say, oh man, long lines. Oh man, delays. Oh man, problems. Okay, I'll get it after work. They go after work, they're exhausted, they're tired, they're sitting in traffic. I'm not going to vote, because I couldn't, whatever, right? And how many of those people who didn't actually put a ballot in slot 3 never even showed up at the polls in the first place, right? Because they got on, they saw long lines and they saw, oh, it's a line or it's, I'm not going to go wait. So they're only talking about the stuff that they sort of saw, right? The stuff that actually got checked in through the poll. But what if there's others, there's other people who just never showed up in general? What about those people? And those people generally, right, would be Republican voters because they're the people who show up on election day. So we'll see if he gets there and talks about that. But he's saying that all the people who did show up, whether you waited or went to a different location or put it in slot 3, they're all going to be counted. This happened in 70 vote centers, according to Maricopa County, all across Maricopa County. And how they addressed it, they had county techs adjusting printer settings at affected locations to fix the problem. And we did a walk and talk on that day. As soon as I walked out when I voted, and I didn't have any problems when I voted. It was very smooth. My ballot printed perfectly. My signature didn't match because I squiggled my signature, of course. And they said, well, who are you? And they verified me with my license and they said, okay, you can vote. And they printed my ballot. I didn't have any problems. But when we were doing our walk and talk after that vote, which we published here, there was a county vehicle that just sort of pulled in right behind us, right? And I said, oh, that's weird. County's here, right? So they're just in and out all day. So you're sort of wondering if it's, something related, but who knows? But my center was functioning perfectly fine. Now they say that voters, they had several ways to cast their ballot. They could have dropped it into the drop box, door 3, the back door. Those ballots will be verified as legit, and then they'll be tabulated down at the main tabulation center, which is in downtown Phoenix. That process is already underway. Let's listen to him explain this to us now.
We had voters who showed up in person to take a ballot, vote it, and feed it into a tabulator. And for those who We're not able to run that through the tabulator. They put that in this, what we call box 3, that we discussed earlier. So that was around a little bit over 250,000. In addition, we also had people who received a early ballot. That was what Reporter Rich was talking about. As opposed to going in and feeding a ballot through the tabulator, they actually brought in that ballot. We had voters.
So the alternative to putting it in the front door, in the back door, and they count it that way, they continue, they say, why? This is the big question. Why did this happen, right? This is a big, important election. We don't want any problems. We've got a bunch of knuckleheads who are supposed to be in charge of this stuff, including Bill Gates, who's standing right here, and Stephen Richer, who's standing over here, and Katie Hobbs, who's the secretary, who's supposed to be sort of, the boss of a lot of this stuff. And what happened? They say, we are still investigating. Oh, it's the printer settings. And he says, the printer settings were the same ones that we used in the August primary, and the paper was the same thickness. That's the same excuse that I use here when my, internet doesn't work and everything breaks here. I'm like, well, it's the same settings, man. I don't know. But I'm not running a state and national election here. But I still try to test this. I understand technical problems, to be fair, but not on an election, not on a situation that affects 7% of the ballots. 7%. Good Lord. All right. He says that Maricopa vote test printed and test balloted hundreds without issue.
What happened? So what happened yesterday, we cannot have a repeat of. We are already looking very closely at what happened. Obviously, our team was able to come up with a fix yesterday for what happened, so that allowed those vote centers to get back online. But again, we are going to do a deep dive on this. This board will get to the bottom of exactly what happened, and we will do what needs to be done. The board has demonstrated that in the past when we have had issues, and we'll do that again. What happened yesterday?
They're going to get to the bottom of it, my friends. So we'll have to just wait and see what the answer is. Now, they did post a public apology. You see, this is their final letter. They say, message to the impacted voters. We recognize that we kind of screwed up on this, and we apologize for the inconvenience. Okay, the inconvenience. Could you imagine if 7% of Democrats or Democratic voters, or 7% of ballots, let's say 7% of early ballots that were mailed in had a problem? Could you imagine what that would look like? Yeah, probably wouldn't go over so nicely. But here they say, to the impacted voters, we recognize this isn't how you pictured Election Day. We apologize. We are committed to counting all legal votes. And we're going to find the root cause of what happened so that it does not happen again. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice of them. All right, let's take a look at this official statement here and see what they're going to get into. Maricopa County releases a joint apology statement from Chairman Bill Gates, not that one, and Vice Chairman Clint Hickman. They respond to America and to Arizona in particular. They say, over the past 24 hours, we've learned more about the printer issue, and it caused some of the ballots to not be read at the vote centers yesterday. Oops. While the issue impacted less than 7% of Election Day voters, about 17,000 ballots, no mail-in ballots were affected. That's interesting. We understand that for people who went through it, this was frustrating, inconvenient, and not how we pictured Election Day. You're telling us. We plan to get to the bottom of it. Ooh, I guess they're serious. The printer settings, oh, here we go, on the ballot on demand printers at the vote centers were the same ones used in the August primary. The paper was the same thickness. Prior to the general election, the elections department test printed and test tabulated hundreds of ballots without issue. We are committed to finding out what factors changed that led to issues at 70 vote centers on Tuesday. We are grateful for the county techs who found a fix to the problem by adjusting the printer settings. Shout out to the printer guy. Coming in clutch. He's like, what did you idiots do here? Let me fix this for you. Shout out to everybody in IT. We love you. The good news is election administration has built in redundancies, they say, backup plans when things don't go as planned. This enables all valid votes to count even if technology on occasion fails. Voters impacted by the printer issue had several ways to cast their ballot yesterday, including dropping their completed ballot into a secure box, door 3 on the site. Those ballots will be verified as legitimate and then tabulated down at the tabulation center. That process is already underway. They say all ballots in bold letters will be counted securely and accurately. And once we get through this election, they promise, we are committed to finding the root cause of the issue so it does not happen again after the election's over. Then we'll look into it. As a county board, they say, we are grateful for the 3,000 election workers who helped legal voters cast a ballot. We are proud of the hybrid model that we've created that allows registered voters to cast a ballot in the way they choose, by mail or in person, with bipartisan oversight. So they're very happy with what they've done. And we are confident in the work still to be done to count every vote securely and accurately. Thank you for voting. So in their apology letter to all of Arizona, they say, we're proud of this hybrid model that we've created that allows you to do this every year. And we have bipartisan oversight, and we just love this process. And we're sorry about it. Kind of a disaster here. But we're pretty proud of this. And everything's going to be fine, so just relax. All right. So that's Arizona. That's Bill Gates and Clint Hickman apologizing, but saying you're also welcome for what has happened here. Now, there's more. We're going to check back in, of course, with Bloomberg on results, but I also wanted to show you what's going on with the elections department. They do an audit where they sort of select a small sample of the ballots and then they start counting them. That apparently has started, and you can see what this looks like with the chairs of the different parties who are present. The Maricopa County Elections Department, they posted this. They said, the hand count audit has begun. Today, the Maricopa County Republican, Democratic, and Libertarian Party chairs drew the races and the ballots that hand count audit boards are going to review this Saturday, this weekend. This is an important step in ensuring the accuracy of the election results. And so you can see that is what it looks like down there. They're drawing out of a hat. Looks like it has a nice little U.S. flag on it. Early voting ballots are here. Hand audit batch. So they're just sort of pulling them out of the main piles. And then they're putting them into these secure duffel bags that look like they came out of Ocean's 11 or something. So that's what's going on at the county elections department. And we'll see. Now, there's supposed to be some additional drops that come in on in Arizona, but we'll have to just sort of wait and see. We'll do a refresh here on Bloomberg, see if any of the numbers are changing as we sort of go throughout the show. Hobbs leads by 15,000. So that went down a little bit by just about 1,000 votes. So that is tightening up a little bit. Now, we'll keep checking back on this. I want to show you what's going on with the data guru, and then we'll also check in with Harmeet Dillon because they are sort of plugged in very well. This came out 24 minutes ago from Gila County, which is a small county here, 3,400 ballots, and this is to be expected. Major break for Kari Lake. Gila County is it's a smaller county in Arizona, but it's traditionally more conservative, and you'd see that breaking out in the numbers. Kari Lake, 75% of those ballots to Katie Hobbs' 25. Blake Masters, similar, not quite as big, 71% for him to Mark Kelly's 26. Mark Fincham and Abe both getting the same type of results. So he's breaking those down. Stephen Richer, who does work over at the county, he says that the 290,000 early vote drop-offs remain that do not start verification until the day after Election Day. County staff has gone through 250,000 of them, 42,000 left to be signature verified. Okay. So that's a big bucket, right? That's a big chunk of votes that are early votes, but drop-off votes. So they're early vote drop-offs, meaning they didn't get enough time to put them in the mail to have those transferred over to be tabulated. So they just showed up and dropped them off. Now, it's hard to guesstimate which way those will break. We know that the in-person day of votes break heavily towards the Republicans, but the early votes, the early votes break heavily towards the Democrats. But these are sort of a split in the middle. It's people showing up the day of with an early ballot. So there's a big number of them. 290,000, 42,000 still left to count through. Bill Gates, who we just listened to, says that tonight, 8 p.m. hour ballot drop, it's going to be at 8 p.m., so it's going to be a late one, is going to be larger than 68,000, but not much. Staff are working 14 to 18 hours a day. They're also going to work on Veterans Day. There were 290,000 early drop-offs, 410,000 total outstanding. People are asking him about Florida. He says, well, there's a difference here. The state does not allow in Florida election day drop-offs, right? So he's saying we got inundated with these things. It looks like Katie Hobbs was inside one of the ballot rooms. Not every woman with glasses is Katie Hobbs. We can confirm this was a party observer. Please refrain from making assumptions about workers who happen to wear glasses. All right, let's take a look at the what's going on over there actually while we're here, because they are actually, this is from the county recorder website. Let's check these numbers. So that's a little bit closer, about 93,000 votes here on the county recorder website. Katie Hobbs, that hasn't changed much either. All right, now there are some cameras that we can actually see here where they are counting ballots. And I was looking at these earlier today, and let's see if we can pick up some good ones and see what's going on. Oh, they're not even in there. What time is it? Oh, it's probably, there it is. Okay, so it might be a shift change. All right, so here you can see, this is live down at Maricopa County. You can see it's November 10th down here in the bottom right now. Doesn't look like they're doing too much. Looks like it might be a shift change. I know that the time actually goes from, they're doing these in shifts from about 7 to 12, and then from 12 to 5, and then from 5, I think, to 8 is the sort of closeout time. I think that's how this is going. So looks like they're just sort of waiting. But when they were processing ballots earlier, the way this works is they sort of pull up the ballots on the screen, and then you get two observers who are sitting side by side. So, there's two chairs right next to each other. Presumably, you've got one person from one party, one person from another party, and they're sort of adjudicating these things. And this is what it looks like. All right, so that's one camera. You have this election monitor person who's down here in the corner who is watching what that looks like. And there's just a whole row of them, and they're just going through them one at a time. So not a lot of activity on that one. Let's see if there's any other cameras. This is another angle from that same angle. Okay, so we were looking at it coming this way from the front of the screens. This is the other side of the screen. And we'll go to camera 8. Here's a hallway shot. This guy's working away. Don't know what he's working on. Shout out to this gentleman. He's on a calculator. Oh, he's doing some calculations. What's he doing over there? What's he calculating? Huh? Somebody enhance that. Computer, enhance. Computer, enhance. All right, so he's over there. And not a lot of activity in other locations, but if you want to take a look at this, of course, you can go over. This is all publicly available at recorder.maricopa.gov. All sorts of camera angles in there for you to take a look at if you'd like to do that. So we may check back in and just see how that looks after the program is coming to a close, just to check in on some of the updates there. Harmeet Dillon has been doing some great work representing Kari Lake and the Republicans and advocating for them in the legal realm. Let's see if she has any updates for us. This also came out from Rich Barris, says that Maricopa intends to drop the Dem-friendly late arrivers and then close up shop. They're holding on the batches that are going to be extremely Republican and then selectively drop those. Yeah, so it's the same sort of argument that, Maricopa County is sort of slow rolling this is the narrative. Not that there's anything fraudulent or anything problematic going on. It's just a slow process. That's all. Translation from Harmeet. says Maricopa is continuing to selectively release Democrat-heavy batches and withhold Republican ballots favoring Kari Lake, Masters, Amadei, and Fincham. But our projections still show us moving up and up and up as the election day ballots are released. That's being confirmed by the, so in other words, what this is saying is it might look worse before it looks better, okay? Like they're going to put the bad ones out are coming first. More confirmation from the county, this came from Data Guru, that while tonight's drop, quote, should be good for Dems, it does not include any election day drop-offs. If those behave anything like election day voters, they would put Kari Lake and Abe over the line. Okay, so in other words, if tonight's drop is not a home run for Katie Hobbs, then Kari Lake is looking good, right? I think this is all quite good news. Greenlee, very small county. They came out. Kari Lake, 68-31. Kelly Ward's involved. And the rest of this is, of course, asking what the heck is going on in Maricopa County. So those are the updates, my friends, and it's just going to be slow. As we heard from Bill Gates, it may take into next week. We don't even know how late. It might be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Who the heck knows? But of course, we'll continue to follow. I hope you're subscribed here so you can continue to join us wherever it is you're tuning in. And we'll look forward to seeing you when we have more updates from Arizona. But we have to, whoa, okay, so our mind map is a little bit bright for us. But we're going to move on because we've got some more election fallout. We've got Donald Trump now is weighing in after the midterms. And I think my mind map got all discombobulated. So we'll just have to make it work on the fly, I suppose. Let's see where it goes. I don't know where one of my nodes went, so we're just going to have to figure out where it went. Donald Trump reacts to the midterms, asking, why would anything change? Everything went fine. I mean, I feel good. You don't feel good? Why don't you leave me alone and look at my record? It seems like many of his candidates did do well, and other people are supporting him. When asked about the midterm reaction, Donald Trump said, why would anything change? He communicated this over to The Hill and to Fox News. Former President Donald Trump appeared undeterred by the GOP's lackluster results in Tuesday's midterm elections, indicating on Wednesday that he does not plan to move the big announcement that was scheduled for next week. We know that's scheduled for November 15th. We learned on yesterday's show that Jason Miller, who runs Getter, and Kayleigh McEnany, who is a former press secretary for Donald Trump in the Trump White House, they both said he should probably wait. Why? Because, well, there's a special election, a runoff that has to happen in Georgia. And we all know what happened last time there was a special election in Georgia. Ugh. But Trump doesn't see it that way, and Trump never sees anything that way, right? This is kind of one of his superpowers. Everything is positive. He never loses. He always thinks that he's victorious, and he sort of wills it into existence, whether it's true or not. He said, what are you talking about? We had tremendous success. Why would anything change, is what he told Fox News Digital. The former president frequently hinted in the final weeks that he plans to announce a 2024 bid imminently. On Monday, he said he had a big announcement. Many people suspect that's going to be taking place in Mar-a-Lago with Melania right next door, right by his side, ready to make this announcement. While Trump touted his endorsements on Tuesday, the general consensus was that there was no red wave, but Republicans are still expected to take control of the House. The Senate is very close. The runoff is going to be also close in Georgia. Trump advisor Jason Miller said, hold off. He said, everything over the next month is about Herschel Walker. We got to get there. That's priority A, B, and C. Kayleigh McEnany, we heard from her yesterday, said the same thing as well. Said we can't start talking about 2024 until we've got the Senate locked up. Chris Sununu, governor of New Hampshire, said the same thing. But Donald Trump says nothing has changed. Why would anything change? We did great. Our candidates were beautiful. Now, people agree with him. Some people, including Kari Lake, think that that is a very astute and perfect observation because Trump has done a lot of good. Kari Lake says, why are people dumping on Trump? Trump has done a lot of good for America. He has been somebody who's promoted America First policies. And now, since there was a little bit of unmet expectations after the midterms, people are trying to dogpile on him and make him the scapegoat for all of the GOP problems. That's not appropriate.
Why all of a sudden is everyone pounding the poor guy to death? I mean, he did a lot of good things for this country.
I'll tell you why they're doing it, because he's probably going to announce he's running, and some people don't want him to, but I don't think that's going to stop him. He did amazing things for this country. His America First policies had every group of citizens doing better. Didn't matter what your skin color was, didn't matter what your zip code was. We were riding high under President Trump.
And many people agree with her. A lot of people sort of only remember the bad stuff, but never talk about the good stuff. And in this case, a lot of people seem to forget that Donald Trump worked quite hard for them and really supported a lot of Republican candidates. It feels like to me, the Republican Party, the GOP, generally demands that Trump support all of their candidates and bend over backwards to support the Republican Party. But if a jurisdiction selects, let's say, an America First Trump-ish candidate, that same courtesy doesn't go the other way, right? It kind of doesn't matter what type of Republican wins, right? As long as they're not a Democrat, as long as they're sort of somebody who's more closely aligned with freedom than the Democrats are, why wouldn't Trump, if he supports some of the non-Trump candidates, or he, will go and support J.D. Vance, for example, somebody who was not necessarily a Trump fan at first, they were able to reconcile. But conveniently, the GOP doesn't provide that same courtesy. I'm talking about Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy. They don't show the same love and affection for a lot of the America First candidates, a lot of the MAGA candidates. Instead, they seem to be biting at each other constantly, while the Republican Party in general crumbles because of the division. Kari Lake says Donald Trump really deserves more credit than he's being given. And I think she is absolutely right about that. So we've got a whole separate segment to get. We've got a whole nother conversation here about the Democrats. They are very concerned that Donald Trump, if he wins, he's going to change the balance of power. But in the near term, they're ultra concerned that the Republicans might win the House of Representatives and open up all sorts of investigations. This Democrat is saying, can we all just get along? Let there be peace. If the Republicans win, we can finally work together. So we'll listen to her in a minute. But first, my friends, we have to talk about gold, because holy moly, we know that things are rough out there. If you have an IRA or a 401k or a savings account, things are scary. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record $30 trillion. Inflation is the highest we've seen since 1982. It's only a matter of time until the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement, your money could be at serious risk. I'll invite you to talk to my friends at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. Go to robertlikesgold.com. If you go there, they'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open up a qualifying account. That's robertlikesgold.com. This is a Better Business Bureau, AAA, A+ rated business. And it's an amazing company. Go protect your savings with gold at robertlikesgold.com. All right, my friends. And so we have this Democrat who's very concerned that the Republicans are going to be investigating them. They don't want the microscope turned upon them. Representative Slotkin is a little bit nervous. She says, why can't we all just get along? The Republicans are in charge. It's time to reach across the aisle. Let's let bygones be bygones and work together.
Without either party having significant control of either house. We don't know who's going to control the Senate at this point. And then the Democrat in the White House, it looks like this could be a recipe for gridlock for 2 years.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, I think when you have a small majority, which is what it looks like my Republican colleagues will have in the House, I know from experience of the last 2 years, it can be a pretty fractious thing. You've got factions. They have the Freedom Caucus. You have folks in our side that are on the left who often don't agree even when their own party puts a bill forward. And so it creates this problem set where they can't lose any votes, or they have to reach across the aisle and get a few Democrats to vote with them. And my hope is that they they look at that as a strategy. We certainly had to use that a few times in the past 2 years in the House, to pass things like the infrastructure bill. So for me, I hope that we don't just have 2 years of investigations and focusing on, niche issues, that we're actually focusing on things that they said they wanted to focus on, which is the economy, which is national security, which is making sure we get away from just kind of throwing bombs at each other and actually do the work.
Yeah, we should really get along. Things like investigating your political enemies, it's really not good for the country. Let's focus on the important things like the economy and inflation and getting our supply chain fixed and solving educational problems and all the important stuff. The last thing you want to do is spend 2 years investigating like a protest or something that leads to indictments of your political enemies. We don't want inquisitions and criminal prosecutions in multiple states all over the place going after, people. It's just not good for the country. And so as you know here, Mr. Fox News, we have reached across the aisle many times, and we're just hopeful that the Republicans can do that for us.
Let me just press you a little bit on that. You say you hope that we don't have 2 years of investigations. We just had 2 years of investigations. So are the Democrats allowed to investigate, but the Republicans aren't?
No, but I would offer that an investigation of an armed insurrection of the U.S. Capitol
with water bottles
is far different than investigating the son of our president, who the FBI has had many, many years to look into.
Yeah, well, he also had some pretty close relationships with, I don't know, the president, the vice president at the time. Okay, it's not just some, isolated presidential son who was just off, having a good time, unconnected to any official business. He was traveling around with Joe Biden to China and places while he was the vice president. It was ripe for corruption. There's been mounds of evidence that these people have grifted or stolen from the American people for their own personal gain at the political expense of the country. And that doesn't warrant an investigation because a couple people were armed at the January 6th protest, whereas many of the assault charges were for throwing water bottles at police officers. And that's not a joke.
If they had saw fit. I think comparing those two is a little bit of a reach, to be honest. And
it's not at all.
I think it was a good thing that our country investigated on a bipartisan basis. The J6 committee. Adam Kinzinger is the Republican. He's going to be thrown out of Congress. He is basically a Democrat, right? I don't think he likes anybody who's a Republican, including Ron DeSantis, including Kevin McCarthy. He's never said anything positive about Mitch McConnell, and he hates Donald Trump. That's the bipartisan Republican? Okay. Who is the other one? Oh, yeah, Liz Cheney, who just got thrown out of the Republican Party by the Republican Party in Wyoming by 40 points. It wasn't bipartisan at all. It wasn't an actual investigation at all. This was a set-up book report that the Democrats utilized for the last 2 years to beat their political enemies into oblivion. No counter evidence was presented. There were no adversarial questions asked. It was a giant fake show. But she's going to say that it's okay for the Democrats to have a fake show. It's not okay for the Republicans to have a fake show. I think that's ridiculous. The Republicans, if they want to survive, if they have a desire to continue to exist, they're going to use the same tools that the Democrats are using. Otherwise, they will be thrown out of the American political arena. January 6th insurrection. Do I think that we should spend a lot of time looking at individuals when, again, law enforcement has had plenty of time to make their case, to look into these people? No. If there's something that's truly worthy of investigation, that's Congress's role. But in my mind, comparing the January 6th insurrection to Hunter Biden is a little off.
Well, we did have the entire Russia investigation as well, which turned out to go nowhere.
Yeah. What about that? Yeah, exactly right. You people have been using investigations and the strong arm of the government for your personal political gain for years. You guys faked the entire Russia collusion saga with Michael Sussman and Jim Baker and the Steele dossier, and you used that to derail Trump's presidency from day one. And now you're going to say that the Republicans shouldn't turn around and investigate you after you've been punching them in the nose for years using the same tool? What a joke. This lady, my understanding is she's like ex-CIA, former CIA, representative in California. So, take that for what it's worth. Not 2 years of investigations. Please, please, please don't investigate us for 2 years. It's time for us to finally get along. Now, Adam Kinzinger is also out there. He is really trying to milk these appearances before he gets thrown out of Congress next year. Adam Kinzinger is on with MSNBC. They ask him, Adam, you're a pretty influential figure. You've really changed the course of America with your valiant work on the fake, illegally constituted January 6th Select Committee. Do you think, will you take credit for some of this amazing midterm outcomes that we're seeing here today?
Member, of course, of the January 6th committee, one of the two Republicans on the committee who's had death threats and all kinds of abuse for being on that committee. I don't know if you were listening, but we were just talking with Michael Steele about how he thought the January 6th committee hearings were a turning point.
Michael Steele, who created a fake dossier that was entirely fraudulent. He got it from Igor Danchenko, who got prosecuted and was not convicted because the FBI and the DOJ cover for themselves everywhere you turn. The entire thing was fake, and she has him on as a guest. And then she uses him as a credibility segue to lay up a question for Adam Kinzinger, who's going to now tell us about more fakeness.
In terms of changing the ideas of the electorate about what democracy means and what a threat means. And perhaps also we should add the president's closing arguments that people derided.
Yeah, and I think he's right, and he's actually the first person I've heard say this because, I guess the conventional wisdom and the thing that I have been holding on to is, look, the committee will make an impact in future history. It will tell the truth in school books that the kids are going to learn about.
He's a propagandist who's telling you that his propaganda is going to end up in the school books, and that's really what he wants. He doesn't really care about reality or the truth, doesn't have any questions about the Senate Sergeant at Arms or the House Sergeant at Arms or the declination by Muriel Bowser to decline the National Guard the day of. We have Cassidy Hutchinson, who tells us bizarre clavicle stories. Nobody asks her adversarial questions about that. I mean, there's no real investigation at all, but he doesn't care about that. He only cares about the blurb and probably the photograph of the illegally constituted committee showing up in the social studies textbook.
But I don't know if it'll have an impact on this race. I think it did, and it may not be the thing that people voted on.
Yeah,
but I think it was cumulative. So whether it was abortion, whether it was January 6th, whether it was Paul Pelosi, these things add up to an uncomfortable feeling for people. If you're Kevin McCarthy right now, you're in a really bad place. He's got to be feeling terrible, which doesn't bother me in any way.
I thought he was a Republican. This is supposed to be the leader of the House. He's still in the House. He's not going to be in the House any longer because his district is gone. And nobody likes him, really, not even the Democrats. But it's a interesting question. Like, wouldn't you support a single Republican? Does he support any Republicans at all? Not Mitch McConnell, not Kevin McCarthy, not Donald Trump, and not Ron DeSantis.
So I look at that and say, now a quick thing to Democrats real quick. Candidate quality matters. I think you could have beaten Ron Johnson in Wisconsin with a more centrist candidate. But that said, Democrats had much better candidates than Republicans did, and that's obvious.
All right, so we'll see what happens with Adam Kinzinger. He'll probably end up running as a Democrat or for president or something like that. Guy is so, he's an interesting fellow. We'll just leave it at that. Now, he's part of the mainstream Republican, I guess. I think he may end up as a Democrat. We don't know where he's going. But we have another mainstream Republican who is very opposed to Donald Trump reacting. Paul Ryan asked about the midterm results, and he's blaming one person, as he always does, for all of the GOP's problems, even though Paul Ryan's been in the GOP for a lot longer than Donald Trump was in active politics.
I think we're going to have to do a lot of soul searching and, head scratching and looking through and parsing the numbers as to why we didn't perform as well as we would have liked to have.
Why do you think it is?
I mean, I think Trump's kind of a drag on our ticket. I think Donald Trump gives us.
He won the White House. You didn't.
Problems politically. We lost the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2 years when Trump was on the ballot or in office. And I think we just have some Trump hangover. I think he's a drag on our offices and our races.
So Paul Ryan still going after Donald Trump, even though he's been irrelevant for many years. He's popping back up again for some reason. He's sort of hitting a lot of the media circuits, and his clips are popping all over the place. So very interesting there. We also have a clip from Steve Scalise, who says that he's perfectly okay with Kevin McCarthy being the next Speaker of the House. Not even a challenge from Steve Scalise. He is going to be voting for Kevin McCarthy, presuming the Republicans take over the House of Representatives, endorsing him for Speaker.
Let me just be absolutely clear about this. So you say that you will support Kevin McCarthy for Speaker, and you pledge to not run against him?
Yeah, and I've said it very clearly. I'm supporting Kevin. And again, I think Kevin's going to win next week. And we're going to be talking about getting to work. I know a lot of people like to focus on all of the drama in Washington. We're going to get to work for the hardworking families who gave us this majority.
We'll keep watching and see where it ends up, Steve.
We will keep watching. We've got a lot of questions about it, of course, and we will wait and see. So, yes, what I wanted to do is go over here to Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden is continuing to call victors from the primaries or from the midterms, and here is a clip of him congratulating Democrats all across the country.
Hey, buddy, Joe Biden, congratulations, man. Congratulations, Joe Biden. Congratulations, kid. How are you, Mr. President? I'm better knowing you won, I tell you. Hey, Gov, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. I really am. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. I think with the grace of God and goodwill of neighbors, all the stuff we did is only coming to fruition next year, because they heard about it, but they haven't seen it. I just think there's a lot we can do. It's really, really going to matter. I'm so excited. God love you.
God love you, man.
I'll sleep better.
I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
Keep the faith, man. Talk to you.
Not joking. All right, so that's Joe Biden. They're very excited over there. He's being handed phones. He has no idea who he's talking to, doesn't really know how to hold the phone or which way is the speaker, or which way is the front or the back, how the thing works. He just says something just like the rest of the presidency. That's the president congratulating everybody. Now, some very interesting clips came out from the president. Apocalyptic. It's a hard word to say, even if you're not on the border of dementia. Joe Biden has a difficult time with this word, so he just gives up.
No, I'm just saying. I just found it interesting that Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Extremist. There you go. Extremist. That's the better answer there. That's the better word anyways. It's not apocalyptic. It's just he's being an extremist. One more time.
No, I'm just saying. I just found it interesting that Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Apocalyptic. It's a complicated word, man. And this was, I think, back when he was having the conversation about we're all going to die in nuclear Armageddon. Remember that? Yeah, no, Putin's probably going to nuke us all to death. We're all going to be dead any minute now. Well, that's kind of extremist. It's just extremist is all it is. All right. So that's our president. Now, stuff like that, little tongue twisters, okay, or, little tongue twisters, we can sort of let those go by, because it's just we all get tongue-tied from time to time. It happens to me sometimes. I'm in the middle of a word, I pick a different word, we got it. But there are other flubs from the president that are a little bit more concerning. People are asking whether Joe Biden is living in the current year, given the fact that he doesn't know what war we're in. Here he is talking about Fallujah.
I think the context is that whether or not they're pulling back from Fallujah and from the Kherson, the city of Kherson.
City of Kherson. Oh, yeah. Ukraine, Russia. Dang it. Not Iraq and Afghanistan. Oh, man, bummer. But all of these global conflicts that you just throw money into hand over fist, it's hard to keep track of them from time to time. And so that's Joe Biden. Not real sure what war we are in. And so that is what's going on from the midterms. Of course, Donald Trump says nothing's changing, and more reaction on the election. We will, of course, continue to cover it. And so let me fix this mind map here so I can get back to business and get our nodes properly oriented here. We've got a couple segments left, and we're going to be sticking with some Biden-Elon Musk news, because they are now going after him in addition to everybody else. Here's what we've got. The Biden administration comes for Elon Musk. They're not even hiding it at this point. During a press conference, Joe was asked about this. You know, Elon just bought Twitter, which is a pretty important platform for the Democrats. They've been using it for years to kind of, in my opinion, suppress Republicans, to have an advantage in the town square that exists all across America. Here's Joe Biden being asked about Elon's purchase of Twitter. Mr. President, do you think that this is dangerous for America? Could this be a national security problem given that Elon's in charge now and not the Democrats?
Mr. President, do you think Elon Musk is a threat to U.S. national security? And should the U.S. and with the tools you have investigate his joint acquisition of Twitter with foreign governments, which include the Saudis?
Come on, Joe.
I think that Elon Musk's
Yes. Come on.
cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at.
For what? What does that mean? Do you just look at people because you don't like them? You know, in America, you're supposed to have probable cause or reasonable suspicion before you initiate some sort of government oversight, okay? I'm tired of living in this world where the government by default gets to look at you in general, right? They don't get to just say, well, we are unhappy that somebody brought, what about my private company? Start your own private company crap, right? Now that Elon's in charge, now suddenly Twitter has to come under scrutiny because they're not in charge of it anymore. And he's just lost in space. Says it's worth looking at.
And, but that's all I'll say.
That's all I got.
There's a lot of ways. All right.
Now, if you can listen to her question in the background, she says, are you going to go after him? Do you think it's appropriate? Yes, I think it's appropriate to be looking at him. How or why or what justification other than they're not in charge anymore hasn't articulated that. She says with incredulity, how are you going to do that given the fact that he's not done anything wrong?
Is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at. But that's all I'll say.
How? How?
There's a lot of ways. All right.
Okay, there's a lot of ways. They're just going to go find one of them to go take out Elon because our federal government just goes after people that they don't like now in America, whether you are, a protester or somebody who just doesn't vote for them. If you even like somebody who's in an oppositional party, you now become a MAGA extremist, now subject to the full inquisition of the federal government. Now, Joe Biden often doesn't know much about what he's saying or what he's doing, but the policies are implemented by his deputies. We've got Jake Sullivan, who gives us a non-answer on the details on this question. President Biden said, yeah, we're probably going to have to take a look at Elon Musk. Why? Don't know. How? Don't know. But we're going to figure out a way. The follow-up goes over to Jake Sullivan, who's from Oxford, by the way. So put your thinking caps on to listen to this clip. It's going to come hard and it's going to come fast. He is asked a follow-up. Mr. Jake Sullivan, the president said that it's worth investigating Elon. What do you say, sir, if you are going to be the person in charge of implementing that directive?
The president yesterday said that it should be that the Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter should be looked into as a potential threat to national security. Can you offer anything about why? And he also said there are many ways to look into that. How would you look into that?
Well, you heard the president yesterday, and the CFIUS process is the normal process through which transactions that might have a national security nexus get reviewed, and I will defer to the CFIUS process rather than comment on it further from this podium.
All right, so Jake Sullivan says that we're just going to go look at the CFIUS CFIUS process in order to investigate what that means. And I think I've got a link on that before we get to For Patriots. Yes, here it is. Now, the U.S. federal government has been wanting to investigate Elon for quite some time. They're exploring whether they have the authority to review the Twitter deal in general. Here's how this process works. It says, U.S. officials are weighing whether to open formal investigation into Elon Musk. A person familiar with the development said on Wednesday that the Treasury Department had contacted Twitter to learn more about a structure of its new ownership. Okay, so Treasury's going after them, saying that they've got Saudi prince money, it's a wealth fund, they've got cryptocurrency exchanges, and so on and so forth. Experts on the foreign review process said of particular interest is going to probably be whether Musk and his foreign investors have any access to personal data about Twitter users. Now, what's curious about this, right? If you've been following along, we know that, TikTok is sort of a long arm of the CCP extending their straw into America to suck out the data of you and your families so that it goes right back over to China. They're not investigating that, are they? Or are they? I don't know. I mean, is it something where we have the president commenting on it? I haven't heard Joe Biden. I haven't heard Jake Sullivan bring the hammer down on TikTok because they're concerned about personal data. Oh, right. Now, according to people familiar with Musk's purpose, they're saying that some people dumped in $250 million or more. Musk is a U.S. citizen. It's not subject to review because he's a citizen and we have rights in this stinking country. But the committee, it's not a stinking country. I love this country. The people who are in charge running it are the stinkers. But the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States could investigate the role of foreign investors in the company in order to bring changes in their involvement. This person is talking about the CFIUS process. Her name is Emily Kilcrease. She says Twitter is sensitive infrastructure for the national discussion. You see this? They know it is important infrastructure. That's why they're unhappy that they don't have control of it anymore. They loved it when they were in control of it and they could shut conservatives up and throw people like Nick Rekieta off and ban people like Viva. It's ridiculous. It has foreign co-investors who clearly do not abide by what they call the democratic norms and values, right? Never mind TikTok, never mind Facebook, never mind any of what these people did to, in my opinion, undermine democratic norms by censoring stories. Twitter censored the Hunter Biden story directly and clearly and acknowledged the whole thing. How is that democratic to censor actual factual stories in the middle of an election? But this weird person named Emily, she served as a CFIUS coordinator. She says that the fact that they are looking at that aspect of the overall Twitter deal makes a lot of sense to me. They also say Musk has extensive ties to China through Tesla because he sells cars over there. Yeah. A publicly traded electrical vehicle company that he runs. Kilcrease said that the early review would be complicated, potentially lasting months because investigators or investors are involved. To justify a full CFIUS review, the foreign co-investors would need to have more than inside information. Senior advisor predicted that eventually CFIUS would decide a full investigation was merited, right? The government, the federal government is going to go after Elon Musk because he took over their baby. There's a growing number of people inside and outside the administration who are concerned about what might happen with Twitter. The Biden bureaucrats and censors and disinformation, misinformation lunatics like Janky Jankowicz, they're all having meltdowns. He said that if CFIUS does undertake an investigation, officials would probably be more concerned about the Chinese and the Saudis. We're not very happy with the Saudis right now, but I don't think they're regarded as a strategic threat. By contrast, the Chinese are. They've demonstrated a capacity to use their data to surveil its own citizens, so there's a track record there. Meanwhile, TikTok is on most phones in America these days. They don't care about that. They don't care about the Chinese. They don't care about foreign anything. They care about not having Twitter, which is where they control the news ecosystem. Foreign access to American sensitive personal data has been of top concern. Not really, obviously. And they say that it could be at risk, and they're concerned the Saudis might be the place where it gets jeopardized. In September, President Biden issued an executive order emphasizing that CFIUS should look at sensitive personal data. And so experts say Twitter would qualify for concern, and you can expect that to happen, right? You get the point of what this means and what's going to happen. It certainly looks like they are trying to beat them to death. And we'll see if Elon can survive. Now, Elon sent the very first email out to his entire team, right? His first email, he says to all, meaning the entire team. And so we're going to read through that because it is pretty juicy. But first, we've got to talk about survival food, because you can't starve to death out there. I mean, that would obviously not be good. A food shortage could be coming. Even here in the United States, experts have been talking about this for some time. Drought, inflation, new policies, they're pushing the food supply to its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. You can create your own stockpile of best-selling 4 Patriots survival food. This is not ordinary food. This is good for 25-year survival food. It's done by a family-owned business here in the United States. They give over 200 jobs. These food supply kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water resistant, they stack easily. Many different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. All you have to do is add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert, that's my name, to get 10% off your first purchase or anything in the store. It includes a 3-month survival kit. And if you look at this kit, look at all this stuff. It's incredible. You can get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order. You get $97, or you get any free shipping on any order over $97. As you can see on their website, they're called 4 Patriots. A portion of every sale goes to charities. They support our veterans and their families. And just go to 4patriots.com, use promo code Robert to get 10% off. Code Robert will allow you to start building your stockpile today. All right, my friends. And so now it is email time. Elon sent an email to every single employee in Twitter, and we are going to take a look at it as soon as I can queue up the document. Here it is. Elon Musk's email to all of Twitter starts off a little bit dreary. He says, "Hi, Twitter. Sorry that this is my first email to the whole company, but there is no way to sugarcoat this message." He says, "Frankly, the economic picture ahead is dire, especially for a company like ours that is so dependent on advertising in a challenging economic climate." He says, "Moreover, 70% of our advertising is brand rather than specific performance, which makes us doubly vulnerable. That is why the priority over the past 10 days has been to develop and launch Twitter Blue Verified. These are subscriptions." And he says, by the way, huge props to the team, exclamation point. "Without significant subscription revenue," says Elon, "there is a good chance that Twitter will not survive the upcoming economic downturn." Says we need roughly half of our revenue to be subscription. Of course, we will still be significantly reliant on advertising. So I'm spending time with our sales and partnerships team to ensure that Twitter continues to be appealing to advertisers. The road ahead is arduous, and it will require intense work, says Elon, to succeed. We are also changing Twitter policy such that remote work is no longer allowed unless you have a specific exception. Managers will send the exceptions list to me, Elon, for review and approval. Whoa! Elon's going to be personally approving or denying exception requests. So don't ask for one. Starting tomorrow on Thursday, everyone across Twitter is required to be in the office for a minimum of 40 hours per week. Obviously, if you are physically unable to travel to an office or have a critical personal obligation, your absence is understandable. I look forward to working with you to take Twitter to a whole new level. The potential is truly incredible! Exclamation point. Thanks, Elon. All right. Things are going to be dire and arduous, and they're going to require intense work. Good reason for you to show up 40 hours a day. If you have any reason why you can't do that, if you need an exception, just know I'm going to be personally approving it. It's going to come to my desk. So people are going to be self-selecting themselves out of that. I'm going to guess that Elon doesn't get many requests on that one. So that's the first letter. Interesting way to start your initial conversation with your entire employee staff, but he's Elon, and of course, I'm sure he's going to make it work. But Elon is also catching it from other aspects of the feds. Politico reports that Elon Musk is losing key executives, and the FTC is going to be coming down on him aggressively. They're saying this is a problem due to the impersonation accounts that you may have seen. People have been changing their names and then keeping the blue check mark because the verification process is a little bit different now, and then saying that they are Elon and sort of posting goofy things. And so they changed a bunch of policies and people are now resigning. Politico tells us Elon Musk's Twitter came under sudden and unusual fire from the FTC, the feds. They're coming down from multiple angles. Happened Washington on Thursday after a chaotic 24 hours in which new subscription rules triggered fake verifications. Last night's rollout of a new process allowed people to purchase blue check marks, and then they began impersonating a bunch of people, right? They said, we're Donald Trump, we're George Bush, we're Rudy Giuliani, we're President Biden, and you can trust us because we're verified. We've got this blue check mark. They say that Elon and Twitter took a bunch of these down, but a top cybersecurity officer resigned in the past day. This came out according to Slack messages from the company. Yoel Roth, Twitter's head of trust and safety, and Robin Wheeler, they also left, according to a person familiar with the matter. They offered public assurances, or were offered, they said, public assurances that they were going to keep hateful content off the platform. The turmoil began with a sharp warning from federal regulators on Thursday. So the FTC is now coming after them, along, it sounds like, with Treasury, alongside CFIUS. Everybody's coming after Twitter. A spokesperson for the FTC said, quote, "We are tracking recent developments at Twitter with deep concern," adding that no CEO or company is above the law, and companies must follow our consent decrees. From the FTC, you know. The FTC statement is an unusual move from a regulator that rarely issues statements ahead of enforcement actions. Why would they do it in this case? I wonder. Twitter is currently under 2 consent decrees. It was fined $150 million in May for violating the first one before Elon was involved. Number of counts were removed. They say Elon is changing policies, which is causing some turmoil. But Thursday's internal warning from a Twitter attorney raised serious concerns about how quickly Musk is forcing the company to change. Over the last 2 weeks, Elon has shown that he only cares about recouping losses, somebody said. And others are saying that you're going to be pressured by the FTC. The FTC has serious enforcement capabilities because of those prior consent decrees. So going to be a lot of feds coming down upon Twitter because they don't want them to succeed. Honestly, I think they'd rather see them dead than in the hands of Elon, right? They'd rather just make the company evaporate than have him control it because they could just recongregate somewhere else. So Biden brings the strong arm of the federal government down upon Elon Musk. We will, of course, continue to cover it. I hope you join us wherever it is you're watching this. Thank you for subscribing and following along as we do. All right, my friends, we've got one final segment. We're doing a little bit of legal coverage. Everything's been legal, but this is like some document reading now, which we haven't done today, which will be some fun stuff. We've got this one from the Oath Keeper trial. New releases tell us that the FBI may have had an informant embedded with the Oath Keepers. And that begs the question, why did the Capitol riots take place? Why did the protests occur? Why was it allowed to get that bad if the FBI was right there the entire time? Now, the story starts with a very interesting publication from the New York Times. The publication is not what is as interesting as the fact that it was published. The details in the story are certainly interesting, but the question is, how did the details end up in the hands of the New York Times? Prosecutors are very upset about this. They don't want the public to know, holy crap, there may have been an FBI informant with the Oath Keepers. So they filed a motion under seal, which evidently has been made public. It was accidentally filed on the public docket. And Kyle Cheney got a handle on that, where the government prosecutors are asking the judge to go and skewer the defense lawyers to say, why did they leak this? Prosecutors blame the defense for leaking the story to the New York Times. So now that we know how all these pieces fit together, let's see what the New York Times actually talked about when they published this story. Coming from the New York Times, they published on November 8th that the Oath Keepers have an informant that's likely to testify as a defense witness. The defendants have an individual who may have been an FBI informant who may come to testify on behalf of the defense. Apparently, a man who served as number 2 to Stewart Rhodes, who is the leader of the Oath Keepers, is said to have secretly reported to the FBI in the months leading up to the January 6th attack. That's weird. Why did the FBI then allow this to happen? And why are the Oath Keepers now being charged with seditious conspiracy for trying to insurrect America if the FBI could have stopped the whole thing from happening on day one? Very curious. They write, Washington. An FBI informant who was embedded for months in the inner circle of Stewart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers militia, is likely to testify as a defense witness at the conspiracy trial of Mr. Rhodes in connection with the attack at the Capitol. Now, again, this is not about the witness per se or about his testimony. It's about, well, the fact that this happened, right, that he was there, right? The trial is sort of at the closing juncture right now. The trial is wrapping up. They are talking about jury selection and all of that. We're not necessarily talking about the trial. We're talking about the fact that this guy was an informant who was embedded with the Oath Keepers and that the prosecutors are pissed that this got publicly released. They are pissed less about the fact that's in this article than about the fact that it was published in the first place, which we'll get to. Now, this is also important, obviously, but I think that the prosecutorial response sort of confirms the accuracy of this article. We'll get there. Says, the informant, who was Stewart Rhodes' number 2, allegedly is named Greg McWhirter, served as the Oath Keepers vice president, but was secretly reporting to the FBI about the group's activities in the weeks and months leading up to the Capitol attack, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. 2 people to the New York Times. Now, despite their relationship with Mr. McWhirter, federal prosecutors decided not to call him as a government witness at the trial of Mr. Rhodes and his 4 co-defendants. That's now unfolding in federal court. The prosecution rested its case last week, did not call other key cooperating witnesses, including 3 members of the Oath Keepers who already pled guilty to the charges, which is interesting, right? In a criminal case, if your co-defendants plead guilty, one of the things the government loves to do is to get a co-defendant, like let's say 4 people go in and rob the bank. You've got a getaway driver and 3 guys who run in, they do the robbing. Well, what they like to do is they like to say, well, there's a conspiracy here. We'll give the first 3 a deal, provided that you turn around and testify against the 4th guy, who was really the main conspirator, the ringleader of the group, to use like a Hollywood analogy. But these guys pled guilty and they're not testifying against the other people. Why is that? McWhirter is 40. He's a former sheriff's deputy from Montana. He was expected to appear at the trial. Listen to this. Expected to appear at the trial as a witness on Tuesday for Mr. Stewart Rhodes, a very unusual move that suggests that Mr. Rhodes' lawyers believe he has information that could help their case, right? The defense is calling a government informant to testify on their behalf, and the U.S. government didn't call this person. But during an impromptu hearing on Tuesday, the lawyers, said that McWhirter had been taken off a plane while traveling to Washington when he was traveling there to testify after he suffered a heart attack. Oh, man. You're kidding me. Man, he's getting on a plane to literally go and testify on Tuesday morning. Heart attack. On the way. Off the plane. Taken off the plane while he was getting there. Heart attack. Man, crazy. Weird coincidence, Oh, I wonder how that happened. Yeah. Because of his medical condition, the lawyers said Mr. McWhirter was unable to appear on the witness stand on Tuesday. Oh, man, bummer. When the defense lawyers still want him to testify, it remained unclear and whether he might be able to do so. As court came to a close on Tuesday, the judge who's overseeing the trial said it might be possible for Mr. McWhirter to testify remotely by video feed. And this guy, McWhorter, is the second known FBI confidential source who was in a position to provide information to the feds about the Oath Keepers before the January 6th event took place. This raises questions, obviously, about why investigators did not know more about the attack on the Capitol. Maybe because there wasn't going to be an attack on the Capitol. Maybe because they knew there was going to be an attack on the Capitol because it was their attack on the Capitol. Near the start of the Rhodes trial, Abdullah Rashid, a former Oath Keeper from West Virginia, told the jury he became alarmed by the violent language that Rhodes used. Said, the more I listened to the call, the more it sounded like we're going to war. FBI also had confidential sources in Kansas City, the Proud Boys chapter. That person was a low-level member of the Proud Boys. As part of his cooperation with the government, McWhorter, the informant for the Oath Keepers, told the FBI about a plot by the Oath Keepers to ambush somebody known as Antifa. In court on Monday, outside the presence of the jury, prosecutors at Rhodes' trial described what appeared to be a similar plot, saying that the FBI got information about the investigation that the Oath Keepers were plotting in 2020 to do certain things. McWhorter once ran the Montana Tactical Training Unit. Last year, he told the Daily Beast that he was selling his business and going other places. This is Mr. Meggs, apparently. Don't know who that is. Other people were charged in the case. Mr. Rhodes took the stand on Monday. He told the jury that even though Mr. Meggs, Watkins, and others entered the Capitol, he never gave them any orders to do so. It was only a quick reaction force that was there to, attend if things went wrong, but never to go into the Capitol. And so that story is there. Now, very curious, okay? McWhorter, evidently an informant, somebody who was working with the FBI, but not close enough for the FBI to stop this from happening, or maybe they wanted it to happen, or maybe they're just creating this whole thing out of thin air. Now, that is what the New York Times published, and I forgot to share with you that came out on November 8th. All right, so take a look at the date here. November 8th is when this got published. And so, yeah, the information in here is shocking. Okay, FBI had informants all over the place, and these are very friendly witnesses who the defense might even call. Wow. But how did they get this information? How did they know about this informant? The DOJ didn't leak it. They certainly wouldn't want this out. So evidently it came from the government, or came from the defense. Now, the prosecutors are very unhappy that it leaked at all. Kyle Cheney from Politico, he said, oops, the DOJ appears to have inadvertently posted a sealed filing asking the judge to grill the Oath Keepers' defense lawyers about whether they leaked to the New York Times that one of the key defense witnesses was a confidential human source for the FBI. Prosecutors want answers from the defense, and they filed a motion under seal, except it wasn't under seal. It was public. And so we have that here, and we can go through it and show you exactly what was filed. When we pull this document up, and we have to get our red pen out so that we can properly mark it up, we're going to see that this was originally filed under seal. A new document in the Oath Keepers trial that was supposed to be filed under seal has now been released by Politico. It's 4 pages, filed on November 8th, right after the New York Times published an article saying that there was an informant embedded with the Oath Keepers who was reporting to the FBI. This is the trial of the United States of America versus Elmer Stewart Rhodes, Kelly Meggs, and others in the Oath Keepers. And it says here that the prosecutors want the judge to take action. They say, hello, Your Honor, we have a potential violation of a protective order. They say, Judge, you already issued an order saying don't talk about this case with the media, and they talked about this case with the media, therefore we want you to do something about it. They tell the judge, Your Honor, the United States of America submits this under seal notice to alert the court, you, to recent media reporting that may reflect a violation of a protective order that was issued by you, Judge. On November 8th, the New York Times article reported previously undisclosed details about an FBI investigation with a confidential human source who is a potential witness to the charges currently pending in this court against the Oath Keepers. Take a look at this article from the New York Times published on November 8th that we just read through. According to the article, the information was provided to the New York Times by, quote, and we read this, by two people familiar with the matter. Oh, who could those people be? Prosecutors say, based on the content of the article, it appears that the reporting is based on government records and information that are not publicly available anywhere because they don't want you to know about that. But they were produced to the defense counsel in these cases in camera. Okay, which means that is a off the record, behind the scenes review. This means the judge looks at this like literally in chambers, right? In their back office. They're not doing this in front of everybody to see. So they're saying, Judge, we're going to notify you about this, and it's provided to defense counsel with you overseeing this information. There was a protective order addendum that they can't talk about this special informant because these prosecutors, they don't want you to know how many FBI agents were embedded everywhere. All that was entered on July 8th. The information reported in the New York Times was information about a confidential human source where the disclosure of such information could compromise sensitive law enforcement techniques and witness safety, right? It's that security argument that they always make. The government has no further information as to how the New York Times learned that Greg McWhirter, who has been discussed on the public record solely as a witness, is a confidential human source for the FBI. Don't know how the New York Times could have gotten that. It didn't come from us. Now, we know how leaky the DOJ is when it serves their interests, right? How many leaks have we gotten about Mar-a-Lago? Endless leaks. Nuclear codes, Kim Jong-un, he's talking with the, all the foreign intelligence, whatever. Nonstop. But in this case, it couldn't have possibly come from the DOJ. It must have come from the defense. They don't know how this leaked out. But because both of these details were disclosed to the defense as highly sensitive and covered by a protective order, the government prosecutors now ask this court to inquire of defense counsel, meaning call the defense lawyers in here and ask them whether they or anyone on their defense teams disclosed this information to the New York Times. They are pissed that this came out, and they are pissed that this is also public, this motion. Okay, this whole thing was supposed to be filed under seal, and it wasn't. They made it public, and it's being reported in the news. So they're like, now they're saying, now they are like double stepping in it, right? They just stepped in it because this story leaked, and now they're trying to cover it up. And in their complaint to the judge to try to cover it up, they made it public, which is essentially confirming the accuracy of the story. Pursuant to the court's power to enforce their own protective orders, undersigned government counsel, we're willing to answer the same questions from the court. So call them in here, ask them questions. We'll answer the same questions. The government, the prosecutors, asked the court to take these steps because of the substantial security and health concerns triggered by the premature leak of Mr. McWhirter's status as a confidential human source. Yeah, he's outed, right? And this all happened, and they don't know how it happened. Even prior to this disclosure, McWhirter conveyed to the government tremendous anxiety about his status as a confidential informant. Yeah. They botched it, right? Like this is like what happens in a movie, right? When the identity is leaked and the dude's like hanging at home, he's like, oh crap, I'm going to get taken out by the insurrectionist clan or something, right? It's all fiction, but you get the point. Yesterday, Mr. McWhirter suffered medical distress upon boarding a plane to travel to DC to testify for the defense and was thereafter hospitalized. So he had a heart attack when he was coming to testify. Security concerns form part of the basis for the courts granting the government's request to disclose this information. And for all of these reasons, they say, Judge, we ask you to ask and inquire of defense counsel about the provenance of this leak to the New York Times and take any necessary steps to address the violations from those defense lawyers. Signed by Matthew Graves and Catherine Rakowski from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And this was never supposed to hit the public docket. Both of these, or all of this was filed under seal in all of these cases, and it's now public. Prosecutors very upset that their FBI informant was revealed. And then when they tried to cover it up by saying, Judge, we're upset about this, go tell them to, fix this, they actually outed themselves even further and confirmed all of the evidence that Mr. McWhirter is, in fact, a confidential human source for the feds. Isn't that interesting? Very interesting. And with all of those informants embedded in all of these different insurrectionary, seditious update groups, no real answers on why the FBI couldn't stop this from happening at all. But that, my friends, is it on the update from the FBI informant embedded with the Oath Keepers. And we will, of course, continue to follow. Now, that, my friends, is it for the updates, the different segments on the program today. But we're not quite done yet. We got to go see what's going on with Kari Lake because what time is it? It's after 6 o'clock. Let's see if we have any updates from Bloomberg. We're doing a refresh over here before we swap over to the election results. And what do we got? All right, we got 71% in now. That's just outstanding. So we jumped a whole whopping 1%. And the margin actually looks bigger. Okay, so those numbers were what we expected. 22,000 votes is now the margin between Hobbs and Lake. In the Senate, we've got the margin is now 107,000 between Kelly and Blake Masters. So as expected, both of those reports were actually sort of in line with what was being prognosticated by Garrett, Archer, and some others. So let's see if I can pull those back up. And we'll go back over to the data guru from ABC 15 here in Arizona and see what he says. All right, so we've got some of those new votes that came in coming out of Tucson. This is evidently early votes. These are from Pima. Pima is a very liberal county here in Arizona, and so these numbers are not unexpected. 64% for Katie Hobbs to Kari Lake's 35. And I don't know if these are day of or early votes because they were still supposed to be early votes coming in. But Pima is supposed to be heavy for Katie Hobbs, right? It's going to break for the Democrats because Pima County is very liberal. Official estimate for Pima, 159,000 ballots outstanding, not updated this last drop, so it might be 140,000. Santa Cruz, another small county, breaking big for the Democrats. Coconino, it's going to be breaking big for the Democrats, but it's a pretty small county again. So that's what makes up those numbers. Navajo, that's sort of a 50-50 split. Again, I think a lot of this stuff is not really the stuff that we're concerned about. We really want those big buckets coming in from the Maricopa County in particular. So not many updates. Let's see if Harmeet has anything for us. She's plugged in with all of the campaigns down there. And she's sort of waiting with the rest of us for updates. But yeah, that's the update. Now, there may be more coming out at about 8 p.m., which is what we saw earlier. Let's see if we have any updates on what the tabulation center looks like. Let's see if they're working hard over there, shall we? Checking back in on some of these cameras. And we'll turn on 8 and 7 and 6. Here we go. And 5. All right, so they are back now. All right, so we've got a couple people in chairs. Not a lot of activity going on at the tabulation center. People walking around and sort of hanging out. Okay, well, so we've got that going on in the background. Let's hit some of these super chats. I saw, well, shout out to STFU FFS says, super chat says, hey, ho, ho, the FBI has got to go. Bye-bye. Bitches is the word. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you is what STFU says. It's like a poetic rhyme. It has a nice, it's like an iambic pentameter or something. So that's what's going on over there at the center. I see Eddie Oliver is in the house. Says, Rob, I still hold you personally accountable for this voting fiasco. You live in Arizona. This is your fault, by the way. We counted our ballots here in Texas. Yeah, I take full responsibility for it. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed about it. I got to be honest with it. When that Bill Gates came out and he said onesies and twosies, I thought of you, Eddie. I thought, gosh, what's Eddie going to think of us here in Arizona? He's going to think we're all a bunch of goofballs. Onesies and twosies. It's not how we talk here. Bill Gates, you're not doing us good. Your representation is not good. We're not happy about it. Thank you, Eddie, for the support. Texas has it figured out. Texas got, their governors figured out. We're trying to join you guys. We're trying to join the, the Florida, Texas crew. We want to be the cool kids and have a cool governor like you guys do, or, have some freedom, I guess, have some liberty in our state. We had a tip come in from Don't Be Hatin' on Locals, says Biden is a tyrant with his executive pen. So shout out to Don't Be Hatin' on that one. Thank you for that, Don't Be Hatin'. Biden is a tyrant with his executive pen. That came over from our Locals chat. And we got a Rumble rant in the House from IR5, says, need hard and fast enforceable election laws. Seems like court always dismiss election cases as no standing. Yeah, I mean, this is a great question. It's a big issue that we've talked a lot about. Great question. It says, need hard and fast enforceable election laws. Yeah, I mean, because it's always changing, right? We always have questions about the different deadlines. And remember, we actually had some hard and fast rules, but then during the COVID era, there were emergencies. And the court said, oh my gosh, it's a COVID emergency. And then we had all of the escape hatches that are built into the laws that were utilized. So they started saying, oh, we got to move the deadline back so people have more time, and we got to do this and waive that and do all this stuff. So it's like even the hard and fast rules, they get changed when people find a scapegoat to use to change it for their favor. Ronnie Cole's in the house, says, hopefully this will help Arizona start to teach math in schools. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, maybe we need to work on our math skills. Arizona, we're having some changes with our schools. School choice is happening here. Maybe we'll learn some more. We'll learn some more math. But they're still just hanging out. I don't really know what's going on. This is why it's taken so long, But all right, my friends. So let's take a look at what some of these other super chats that came in before we wrap it up for the day. I want to make sure that I don't miss anybody because I have a tendency to do that. And we had a couple come in before. Wait a minute. Those are old. Got to do a refresh on this site. STFU says, it takes time to quadruple signature check GOP ballots. Yeah, yeah. Certain ballots are just like, oh, it's good. Biden, Kelly, Kari Lake, Democrats for life. Perfect. Good ballot. Yeah, got it. Just wave those ones through. Uh-oh, that looks like an R ballot. We better verify it. What do you think? Yeah, we better verify it. Somebody's asking if they already had their siesta in Arizona. Possibly. Here we had some super chats, my friends. These came in. We have, let's see. Starting us off, Geo was in the game, and we gave a shout out to Geo. Support our friend Geomancy Games. Bruce Lee says, what about Purple Mountain's Majesty? I don't know. What about it? Should I sing that with the announcement of the fruited plain? Is that what you're talking about, Bruce? I can't do the whole song. His story says, the wrath of God must be poured out. So let Donald Trump be elected to speak of the House. Thumbs up if you agree. From his story. Elected to be Speaker of the House. I see. So Donald Trump wants to be Speaker of the House is what his story is advocating for. 4 Alpha Zulu says, why does the ballot counting office need a duplication scanning station number 1? What exactly are they duplicating? Those are great questions. And I think when this popped up, what we saw like last year would be like an example of this would be if somebody's ballot got like mangled in the printer or something, right? Or in the scanner, like they put it in there, or it gets like mangled up in the mail. They actually will duplicate it, right? They'll duplicate it and they'll, this is a duplicate ballot, and they'll refile it, put it back in there, something like that. We had another one from UGB Aventador. Is that a Lamborghini? Who came in, says, hey, Rob, watching from Australia. Well, shout out to Australia. Says, thanks for your content. You are exactly right. Trump supporting the GOP, but the GOP not supporting him in return. And it does. It feels sort of unfair. It's like, hey, guys, like we're on the same team, Like if you're on the same sports team, you all got to run the same play, even if you don't like the players, right? Even if you don't like your co-captain, you shut your mouths and you get in it to win the game. But it doesn't really happen like that. Like Trump will go out and he'll support JD Vance, and he'll go out there and he'll support other people that aren't like Trump people. And then when it's, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or like it's Lauren Boebert, who needs some help and some support and some love, they just say, you're on your own. Nothing out of us here. Good to see you. And shout out to my friends in Australia. Love that. This is from Australia. This ball came in from a friend in Australia. And shout out to our friend who sent us that. That's from Australia directly. Thank you for sending that. That's our piece of Australia. I forgot that was even there. And it's amazing. It's a nice piece. It's a nice addition. This is a global show. Daniel Henry says, just grabbed all the stats on Arizona, the Senate election, as reported by the RCP, and did the math. If the remaining unreported vote breaks for Masters by at least 58%, he will cover the margin and win. I think that is doable. If he really is at the 52%, I think that he would. 58%. He actually might be able to do that at some point. We'll check before we wrap it up. The Freak says, always on top of things, Rob. Great job. Great work. And thank you. Thank you, DeFreak. Thank you for your super chat and supporting our work here. K Bean says, I got temporarily banned from TikTok today for saying to someone that they voted for a guy that just had a stroke. You got banned for a comment? We stopped posting on TikTok in general because we got banned for like every other video. And then they said, if you keep posting this, we're going to ban you permanently. And we said, well, we don't want your stupid China platform anyway. And we booted out of that one. We were going very quickly until they shadow banned us. It was a lot of, it's TikTok. But we don't participate on that platform anymore. We had another one from Eddie. We saw that one, Ronnie Cole. And we got that from STFU. And so I think we about covered the super chats, my friend. K Bean says, it is a stupid China platform. It is. It's actually not a good platform. Like there was a period of time when I was trying to learn TikTok because I was thinking, oh my gosh, like this platform is blowing up like crazy. But I started to use it to try to understand, how it works. Because you can get that. Like a lot of people, how do you be successful on YouTube? Honestly, watch a ton of YouTube. Watch what a ton of other YouTubers do. And find somebody that you like and then sort of emulate them. So you take a look, you try to study the platforms and the algorithms. And on TikTok, I was watching a lot of them just to see how it worked. And I felt bad. It felt like negative. Like it was just shoving negativity. Like I'd get off of a TikTok session and be like, why am I so agitated right now? Like, what is this? It's weird. And then you start to realize like this is just programmatic programming, and it's not. I don't think it's that good for you. This one came in from STFU FFS. He says, "Those balls are from Unda." Yeah. From Unda. What is it? From Unda cheese, I think is the one. Oh gosh. Yeah, sounds stinky. We don't want that at all. All right, my friends. I think that is about it for us on the day. Let's see if I missed anything. Hopefully I didn't. But we have a long way to go before we get some answers in Arizona. As we saw, it may go all the way into next week at some point in time. We'll see if there's some new updates that hit, of course, tomorrow. It's going to be a beautiful Friday. And we're going to have a lot of business to attend to. Let's check in on the Tabulation Center one final time before we wrap it up here. And they're still hanging out, man. What's going on over there? Yeah, it'd be very frustrating to be sitting there, Can I just get some, can you just give me a stack of them? Just give me a stack of them. I'll just tell you. I'll just start tweeting about it. I counted 25. These are for Katie. Another 25. These are for Kari. Just keep going on and on and on. Yeah, this is what's going on. Come on, count the votes, man. Pass them out. Pass them out. Maybe they need more passer-outers. Anybody want to volunteer to pass out the ballots? I'm just kidding. There are a lot of really good people down here. Okay. So shout out to all the people who are down here volunteering, counting this. Like this is a lot of thankless work. This is a lot of people volunteering their time who are doing really good work, you know, and they're trying, like, I really think that there's a lot of good people down here who are very helpful and trying to do good work. So I'm hopeful that we get, you know, like these people, I think are great people. The people who are in charge of all of this infrastructure seem to be incompetent, but you know, the people who are actually there counting the ballots, I think, thank you to them. And so we'll keep sending them our love. Please keep counting quickly. We need answers, please. All right. So we'll wait for more. And of course, we'll have more reports tomorrow when we get more answers. But my friends, we did cover a lot of ground. We had some good updates from Kari Lake. We had some updates on Donald Trump. We'll check back in with all of these, Elon Musk, Joe Biden, and more. If you want to join our community at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, we're going to jump over there for just a little bit and go over a little bit more comments for our after party for members only. So come check us out at watchingthewatchers.locals.com and join in on the fun. Also want to thank our amazing sponsors that we hit on the show today. Check out Gold. You got to protect your retirement savings. Go to robertlikesgold.com to talk to Goldco, amazing company, along with 4 Patriots. We can't starve to death in this country. So we've got to go over to 4patriots.com and get our survival food. And of course, if you happen to know anybody in the state of Arizona, I know many of you are not from Arizona, but people do travel back to Arizona and sometimes they get in trouble with the law. That's what our law firm does to help. The R&R Law Group, we are dedicated to helping good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope, not only in their case, but beyond that, also in their lives. 480-787-0394, online at rrlawaz.com is the place to go to send people our way so we can help them. And finally, shout out to all the mods in the house who mod down the fort for us as we're going through the stories on the day. Big shout outs go to Vientikis, K-Bean, Just K-Bean, who got banned from TikTok. Criminal. Just Cause. Shout out to Lean. We have Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole. Shout out to Ronnie. Thank you, Ronnie. Zulu. Geomancy, subscribe on YouTube Games, and Henry Dixon as well. All of our friends who mod down the fort for us. We're grateful for you, but that is it for us. We're going over to locals. We've got a little bit of time left to hang out. Come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Otherwise, I hope to see you right back here tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Sleep very well. See you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.